everyone. This is the second part of the poem When I Was Growing Up by Nellie Wong. In this video, I'll be giving a detailed analysis of the poem, or so to say, I'll be giving you a reading of the poem, my reading of the poem, because poems can be read in different ways and you can have your own reading as well, and no reading is wrong. So this is actually my reading of the poem. So and I'll be reading the poem. I'll be reading the stanza, each and every stanza. I'll try to give you a sort of an analysis, a sort of an interpretation of the poem. So we'll get to it. If you have not seen the introduction to the poem, I'll give the link at the end of the video, and you can go through that as well. So we'll get to the poem first of all. I'll read each and every stanza and try to interpret the poem for you. Okay. The poet Nellie Wong begins the poem by a sort of admitting of a fact that I know now that once I longed to be white. How, you ask? Let me tell you the ways. Now, the poet actually is admitting the fact that once, when she was growing up, she longed to be white. She longed to be white, and she is talking about the different ways in which she felt so. See, the poet is going down the memory lane where she sees moments where she had a longing for being white, fair, American. See, the problem with longing is that, the problem with the desire is that, desire in a sense is created, it is a creation. Desire is a creation, longing is a creation. And the longing or desire in an individual is being created by the system, by the society, by the different socio-cultural discourses. The white patriarchal racist society creates in her the desire to become white. So being a creation, how does this desire work, or how is this sort of a desire created in her? There are different discourses which creates things in you, helps you in creating different sorts of ideas, and the desire to become white is as well a sort of a creation. Now, what are the different ways in which, or how was this sort of a desire, this sort of a longing created in her? And she is trying to detail, trying to give point by point, she is trying to pinpoint the different ways the different ways in which this sort of a desire to become white was created in her by the society. Okay, so that is what the first stanza means. Longing or desire is a sort of a creation, and once when she was growing up, she longed to be white, and becoming white. Why do you long to be white? Why not any other color? Becoming white does have some sort of an implication. So these are the reasons by which she wanted to become white in color. And we'll go to the next stanza. I'll read it out. When I was growing up, people told me I was dark, and I believed my own darkness. In the mirror, in my soul, my own narrow vision. See, the first reason that she is giving, or the first way that she is giving for her longing, for her desire to become white, is the people. The people define what you are. People tell you whether you are dark, whether you are white, whether you are ugly or beautiful, good or bad. So it is the gaze of the people. And when people gaze at you, you gaze back at you using people's lens. See, people gaze at you, and you of course gaze at you, but You gaze at you, not using your own lens, not using your own yardsticks. Instead, you use people's lens. It is through people's lens that you yourself. You see yourself. So what happens is you begin to when people say that you're dark, you begin to believe your own darkness in the mirror. So when you go and stand in front of the mirror, you're seeing yourself from the people's point of view, in people's mirror, in people's soul. It has ceased to be your soul. It becomes people's soul. It becomes people's narrow vision. So what happened when people begin to talk, they become narrow, right? It's only when individual talks, if it is an individual who talks, he would think and he would be broad-minded, open-minded enough to accommodate any differences. But when it is a mass, when it is a mob, when it is people, what happens? Your vision gets narrowed. So when people tell you what you are, and you begin to accept it as it is, and you begin to gaze at you, gazing is a very problematic thing. When you begin to gaze at you, using the people's lens, the problem arises. So the first way by which she had this craving, she had this longing, this desire to become white, was because of the people around her. And the second, another problem with the people is that people do not actually accommodate differences. People celebrate binaries. People celebrate the power and the powerlessness in binaries. So they cannot accommodate differences. They can see people either as black or individuals either as black or white. So what happens is, using others' lens, you begin to vision yourself. You begin to see yourself using others' lens. So that is what the second stanza is about. As I told you, this is my own reading, so you can have your own reading as well. And then the second thing, the second reason, or the second way by which she wanted to become white is, when I was growing up, my sisters with fair skin got praised for their beauty, and I fell further, crushed between high walls. So what happens is, the second discourse is, of course, the kith and kin, the sisters, the relatives, who are actually part of the cultural system which helps in creating what you are. It is, of course, differences which create your identity, comparison which create your identity. So your identity, when fairness gets praised, when your sister is fair and you are not fair, and fairness gets praised, what happens is, the binary is reinforced. The binary of white and black is getting reinforced by the praise that you give to one who is fair and one who is fair. So now what Nellie Wong is trying to do is that she is trying to blur the binary, but later on what happens is, we understand from the coming stanzas that though we try to blur the binary, though she is very much aware of the binary that she is caught in, the beauty consciousness, she is very much caught in all these things, but then indirectly she is also indoctrinated. Psychologically, she is also indoctrinated into this binary, and unknowingly she herself reinforces it in the coming stanzas. We'll go to that. We'll of course talk about that in the coming stanzas. Now, talking about the next reason, or the next way by which she had this desire for becoming white, is that when I was growing up, I read magazines, saw movies, blunt movie stars, white skin, sensuous lips, and to be elevated, to become a woman, a desirable woman, I began to wear imaginary pale skin. Now this is another reason why you want to become white. It is media, it is magazines. As I told you in the introductory part of the video, in the last video, it is the media, it is the magazine, it is the movies, who who actually tries to define what is desirability and what is not. What is desirable in a woman? See, sensuous lips, elevated lips, imaginary, see, pale skin. All these are considered desirable in a woman. So what happens is she began to shed her own Chinese identity, her own Asian American identity. She wanted to shed her skin off and wanted to assimilate herself into an American skin. So a desirable woman is a creation of the white patriarchy. It is white patriarchy who creates what is desirable and who is desirable and who is not desirable. Okay, so these are the things that she grew up with magazines, with movies, with movie stars, white skin, sensuous lips, kind of concept of beauty, which is all the time in a kind of a routine manner, routined manner, in a kind of every day you are reading, you are seeing these kinds of movies, these kinds of magazines by which you define you or they actually define what is desirable in a woman, and you take it in, you swallow it as if it is a gospel truth. And in the next stanza, she talks about she talks about the beauty concept. Where does the beauty lie actually? See, when I was growing up, I was proud of my English, my grammar, my spelling, fitting into the group of smart children, smart Chinese children, fitting in, belonging, getting in line. So, where does this beauty lie? Beauty, she was very proud of her English. She was completely, for her, she had actually completely assimilated into the American culture by learning everything that she could. The English or the grammar, the way in which they were speaking, the accent, the spelling. She was trying to fit herself, she was trying to become smart so as to hide her so-called ugliness, in quote. She was trying to hide her ugliness by learning, by becoming proud of her intellect, by becoming proud of her knowledge. And then what happened? When I was growing up and went to high school, I discovered the rich white girls, a few yellow girls as well, their imported cotton dresses, their cashmere sweaters, their curly hair, and I thought that I too should have what these lucky girls had. Now, it was only when she reached her high school that you have the definition of what is, you go to mixed school where you have white children as well as yellow Chinese children. So what happened is there the standard of beauty gets changed. The white becomes the standard, white becomes the norm, and children wanted to be what, see, Nellie Wong wanted to be what others were. She wanted to have what others had. Like, she wanted to be like the rich white girls. She wanted to have these imported cotton dresses, cashmere sweaters, curly hair. She felt like, had she been lucky, as these girls are, I mean, she could have, I mean, become successful in life. Maybe, yeah, that is the kind of a feeling that she had. See, in your further reading session, you have a poem titled "To Other Women Who Were Ugly Ones." It is written by Ains Hernandez Avila, who is a professor of Native American Studies at the University of California. I'll just quote some lines from that particular poem. I'll just read it out. Do you remember how we used to panic when Cosmo, Vogue, Mademoiselle, ladies would glamour us out of existence? So ultra bright would be their smile, so lovely their complexion. Now this is a poem which is published in a collection, Infinite Divisions, an anthology of Chicana literature, where she is talking about Chicana girls, brown girls. Now, in this particular poem, she is talking about yellow girls. So, what happens is, what she says is, do you remember how we used to panic? It was a kind of a panicky situation for them. Not becoming white, becoming brown, becoming yellow was quite panicky for them. And she's saying so ultra bright their smile would be, lovely their complexion would be, these white people's complexion, these white people's smile would be so beautiful to look at. Then they were quite panicky because of that. So coming back to this our poem, um, when I was growing up, I hungered for American food, American styles, coded, white, and even to me, a child born of Chinese parents, being Chinese was feeling foreign, was limiting, was un-American. So, American food, American style, everything that was American, the whatever was Chinese was foreign, limiting, un-American. Whatever was American turned out to be standard, and she began to belittle herself because of that. When I was growing up and a white man wanted to take me out, I thought I was special, an exotic gardenia, anxious to fit the stereotype of an oriental chick. Now, a feeling of being special when a white man takes you out, a feeling that you have become kind of an exotic gardenia for those white man, and you feel you are special for these white people. You feel that you are taken in when you are not, when really you are not. When I was growing up, I felt ashamed of some yellow men. Now, here changes her whole attitude. That is what I felt. When I read the poem, this is what I felt. And maybe you can feel the other way also. When I was growing up, I felt ashamed of some yellow men, their small bones, their frail bodies, they're spitting on the streets, they're coughing, they're lying in sunless rooms shooting themselves in the arms. Now this is quite interesting in the sense that everything comes to a change where Nellie Wong is trying to fit herself into an American society which does not accept her. So there occurs a sort of a gap between her Chinese self and the American self. And that is a sort, the Chinese American binary is something she had to confront all through her life. So throughout her life she had tried her maximum to assimilate herself to an American culture by shedding off her Chinese skin altogether. But the problem was with second generation. Now, Nellie Wong belongs to second generation Chinese Asian Americans. So what happens is it is their father, it is her father and mother, parents who actually migrated from China to America, and they settled there. And what happens with the second generation Asian Americans is that they are born and brought up in America. So what happens is they are born and brought up into an American culture who actually do not accept them. But in turn, they do not want to accept their Chinese culture as well. So here you have a complete negative images of Chinese people. She was feeling ashamed of yellow men, the small bones of yellow men, their frail bodies, they're spitting on the streets, they're coughing, they're lying in the sunless rooms and masturbating or having homosexual relationships. See, this is shooting themselves in the arms. See, this is something which because she is assimilated, because she feels that she is completely assimilated into the American culture, she views everything Chinese in a very negative way. See, instead of identifying herself with her own roots, maybe because she is born and brought up in America, she accuses all Chinese ways. See, when I was growing up, people would ask if I were Filipino, Polynesian, Portuguese, then they named all colors except for white, the shell of my soul, but not my rough, dark skin. that, see, what I felt up by reading this particular stanza is that she hated all other identities except white. She did not want to be accepted as anything else but white. She did not like being called Filipino, Polynesian, Portuguese. Nobody called her white, and that is what she was bothered. That is what bothered her too much. See, that was the color of her soul. But then her rough dark skin was cheating her in every way, was deceiving her in every way. When I was growing up, I felt dirty. I thought God made white people clean, and no matter how much I bathed, I could not change. I could not shed my skin in the grey water. So, this dirty feeling that she had, the cleaning process that she is doing, that every day she is taking a bath, that all these things, the cleaning process, the feeling of being dirty, all these things are making her helpless each and every day. And of course, it brings her to a realization that however she tried to change herself, however she tries to change herself, her appearance would deceive her. Would Her appearance is the only way she could. Uh, uh, Her appearance is the only way by which her identity is being defined. So she could not shed her skin in the grey water. When I was growing up, I swore I would run away to purple mountains, houses by the sea with nothing over my head, with space to breathe. Now, see, uncongested with yellow people in an area called Chinatown, in an area I later learned was a ghetto, one of many hearts of Asian Americans. Now, she was craving for a world of freedom. She was craving for a space of peace. See, purple for women is a kind of an alternate platform for liberation. Purple mountains, houses by the sea, was nothing over her head. There she would be getting a space to breathe enough, to have peace enough, where she would be completely free. And that is a place where she did not want yellow people. She did not want the congestion, or it should not be congested by the yellow people who live in Chinatown. Chinatown is actually a place where a ghetto where the first generation Chinese immigrants, laborers live. So, because she has so sort of a negative attitude towards these Chinese people, she did not want to be congested by these Chinese people. Instead, she wanted to become American. She wanted to breathe. She is very much caught in between. She cannot be an American because Americans would not accept her, and she cannot be Chinese because she is not Chinese. And in the sense, she is born and brought up in America and Chinese. China won't accept her, so she is caught in between. So later on, she of course realizes that this is the heart of an Asian American. The Chinatown becomes the heart of an Asian American. I now know now that once I longed to be white. How many more ways, you ask? Haven't I told you enough ways? See, now what happens is when she writes this poem, she has come to terms with her own identity. That is why you see Nellie Wong is a writer who voices for the marginalized community, who voices for the Asian Americans living in America, who becomes a spokesperson for women as well, the immigrants over there, or in America. So this was a past that she had, where she herself was psychologically indoctrinated, and she herself had this other feeling. She was othered on the one side, and she wanted to other others as well, Chinese people who are belonging to China. So this poem, in short, you can say that this poem talks about how each and every non-Western individual grow up in a Western country which is filled with racism, color discrimination, color-coded discrimination on the one hand. It also talks about how girls grow up in a discourse of beauty, and it also talk about how horrible it is to fit yourself into a model that is not you, that is not yourself. It also calls for, this poem also calls for an embracing of your natural laws, that is natural laws, or the so-called natural appearance, as opposed to the artificial ones, as opposed to something which is created. You embrace yourself, you embrace what you are. The poem also talks about, these are different kinds of readings that you can have. The poem also talks about the gray spots beyond the binaries of black and white. You have brown, you have yellow, you have black, you have lots and lots of other colors becoming beautiful. See, it's brown is beautiful, it's black is beautiful, it's yellow is beautiful. So it's being an Asian American, Nellie Wong had quite a difficulty in living in the midst of racism, fighting racism. So we can say that this is a cry of an Asian American writer against all sorts of discourses which brackets people into different identities based on set standards created by the powerful part of the binary. See, it is the powerful part of the binary who creates, who brackets people into different identities. So the poem could be read in different ways. But these are the different ways. If you have much more ways, you can go for that as well. And this poem is also very, could be read in the current scenario of COVID, when you are Chinese, you become Wuhan virus and all, which you are being labeled. Once Chinese people are being labeled, that so even the trolls you make, even the comments you make, see, the trolls and the comments you make would be very much racist. See, nowadays or anytime, no talk or no word is devoid of its political implications. See, each and every word that you utter is never innocent. So we should be, these discourses are created by the words that we utter, the kind of things that we say. So I would like to wind up this video by quoting Kamala Das, who says, "Words are a nuisance, beware of them. They can be so many things. A chasm where running feet must pause to look, a sea with paralyzing waves, a blast of burning air, or a knife most willing to cut your best friend's throat." So beware of words, the trolls and the comments that you make about anybody, or anybody or any group of people would be racist, colorist, gendered. So beware of that. Thank you.